VCR Redux will begin in T-minus 5 minutes.
What the fart is VCR Redux?
It's the show where we take movies from the VCR era and bring them back to today.
How do we do that?
Well, we start by talking about a VHS classic, and usually you'll say something like,
I haven't been this uncomfortable since I watched Meatballs 4, Meatballs to the Rescue with my parents. Oh yeah, or you'll say something stupid like,
I wish we lived in a world where the Garbage Pail Kids made as many movies as the Muppets.
but I know you'll always see it through with a positive attitude.
I hate this movie, I hate being here, I hate all of this. Oh, Jamie Kennedy. Oh, well, shit. Well, let's go for this.
He was in Son of Mask. This is genius.
I am not a gamer. I'd rather read books. I'm just
Ian's like the old lady that's like, I got video game monsters, I got movie monsters in here.
As long as we respect the passion and the artistry that went into these films.
You know, obviously they took this movie, it's 93, right? And you're like, what do you want to see in your Mario movie? And they're like, oh, we want it to be grim, we want a lot of death, we want tits and ass.
Oh, and then we start the pitch ideas with modern day sequels like
Weekend at Bernie's 3, Cocaine Mountain.
Sometimes we take it kinda seriously.
I'll watch a Paul Verhoeven alien movie.
oh my gosh, that alien will have more vaginas than anything you've ever seen in your life. Sometimes this Hawaiian shirted fool will pitch something stupid like,
I would take out the virtual reality stuff and just have it be about Jeff Fahey mowing the lawn.
Sometimes the best pitches come from the live chat.
Alex Bonafonte also pitches Grand Theft Starfighter Vice Galaxy.
wait, I thought I had the best pitches.
And what happens at the end of the movie? The ultimate fart. The fart that the warmth goes like all the way down to your socks.
The only rules are, there are no rules. Sometimes we cross over franchises.
Only the truck from Tango and Cash can kill Christine.
And sometimes we travel back in time.
Like 1995 is missing a good Universal Soldier sequel.
But you never know what we're gonna pitch next.
What do you want? Do you want Daniel Stern behind like a muzzled mask? Like,
We all know it should be Pesci behind the mask, and like underneath the mask, you should hear him going like fritter, 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 fritter.
you are so proud of yourself for that one. I can't stand you.
I would also love to see a Charles Bronson version of It's a Wonderful Life.
What?
Direct to DVD.
If you made a shot-for-shot remake of Scarface with Goofy as Al Pacino, it would be amazing. Gosh, you need me to be the bad guy.
It's like the worst 1987 Disney movie Disney ever made. Schlongo, directed by Jim Wynorski.
Like, I would watch a whole bowl of that.
Do the John Holmes story. Add a comedy spin to it.
Wow, the Wonderland murders are so funny.
I'd watch it on my mobile.
Something happens and he goes into a coma. He gets like, hit by a car or something. I know this is dark, but like, bear with me. He's got to go on.
Did you just go like Hard to Kill with Ferris Bueller?
I'd watch it on my iPad.
If you want to just like throw in the kitchen sink, it all works. Like Alien versus Predator versus RoboCop. Like if that works. Alien versus Predator versus Terminator. That works.
Alien versus Predator versus Ernest. That works.
That works.
I respect everything you just said. I need David Silver and Terry Silver and the Sloan family all learning the Quicksilver. But they're doing it in Breakin' 3 Hydraulic Boogaloo. And it's underwater. It's gonna be incredible. Eat your fucking shit out, James Cameron. I got the underwater movie you can't touch.
That was the most disgusting thing I've ever heard in my life.
Mr. Toxie Goes to Washington.
My ass would be in the theater tomorrow.
If Harley Quinn gets 7 movies, then Tank Girl should get at least 70.
That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard of in my life.
I mean, why should we even bother with Look Who's Talking when Air Bud is soaring to new highs?
All I know is I want Danny McBride.
I'd want him doing anything other than writing Halloween movies, honestly. Anything that keeps him away from that fucking job, I'm for it.
Just let him talk out of his butt. I don't care how he does it.
I'd rather not.
Austin Powers doing the Macarena.
That would be the opening credits. Come on.
But we have not yet had Die Hard on a half pipe. What if John McClane Jr. was a pro skateboarder and also an avid machine gun enthusiast? Skater Die Hard.
What up, virtual people? Welcome to the 167th episode of VCR Redux, where we take your favorite franchises out of the analog era and bring them back to 2024. I'm your host, pop culture punk Chris Stiles, joined as always by my co-host with the most, film professor Ian Klink.
Jello!
And we have two radical guests on the show tonight. First up, the VCR's own resident champion of Street Fighter Tournament Edition, Crash Romeo guitarist Steven Zangief Anderson is back on the show.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
And rounding out this musical crew, making the most long-awaited return in VCR history, the only member of Fandom Spotlite to make it all the way to Carnegie Hall, Jazz Bielby is finally back on the show.
It's been a long time. Definitely feels good to be back.
Oh, we're so glad to have you. One of these days, you'll show us. One of these days, you'll show us all how to get to Carnegie Hall before Ian makes that practice joke. But we are here today to celebrate the cinematic cross-section of Joe Seneca, Johnny Drama, and the sensational Shawnee Smith. That's right, folks. This world needs the Blob too, and we're here to give it to you. But before Ian starts simping for the guy from RoboCop, we got a dish on how the Blob came into our lives and what we love about it. And of course, that goes double for you at home and everyone watching the live chat. Was it love at first Laserdisc, Vital VHS? Hit us up in the chat and let us know how the Blob came into your lives. So, Jazz, when did you first get blobbed?
So it's more of just like the story of it that brought me into it. Of course, many of you might know I'm a big Marvel nerd, so I'm like, this sounds kind of like the grandfather or the godfather of Venom a little bit. So that's kind of what got me into it. And then I actually watched the 58 version for the first time last night to prepare myself, and I have a lot of thoughts. The OG.
Wow. Ooh, OG. Well, I'm sure Ian's gonna sit here and be like, OG is the only way to go, and the new one has too much fun, and blah blah blah. But we'll get to that. I'm curious when
presumptuous bastard. You know, like every time you think I'm gonna hate on every single one of the movies that we do on this show, and I'm offended, sir.
Well, you are always welcome to prove me wrong and have a good time and enjoy.
I mean,
the
although
show.
this movie does suck, but no.
Oh no! Oh, what a twist of events! No one could have seen it coming, folks.
Everything both you and I say tonight is going to be so contradictory. It's going to confuse everyone.
All right, confuse them, Steve. When did you first get blobbed?
Way too young. And I'll tell you, this was like a foray for me into horror, into body horror, into whatever else. You know what happened is, I think, very, very young, my old man, my father, whatever, he never watched horror movies. He wasn't into them, whatever, pretend like he, just thought they were boring or whatever. But I think he didn't, was kind of freaked out by him. And one time we were like, we're going to watch The Blob. And we're talking like, I don't know. It must have been right around when it came out. Me and a buddy of mine, and he's like, that one I've seen. That's not a scary movie. You guys should watch that. That's a good one. And then I think at one point my mom came in and somebody's face was dissolving into the whatever, you know what I mean? And she's like, oh, gross. That's awesome. And I remember thinking, like, it's crazy. He was so adamant about like, this won't bother you guys at all. Cause it doesn't pull any punches. The movie has teeth.
It's funny. It has much sharper teeth than you would expect, especially at a young age. So I can sort of relate to that. What about young Iowa Ian? What gas station bestowed this great cinematic masterpiece upon you?
Well, I will say that I do remember the VHS from, for years, was at Casey's General Store in the video rental at the gas station. That's where you got a lot of your video stores back in the day, or your video rentals. No, I remember the VHS, but I actually caught this on HBO. I was very young. I mean, this was probably in '89. I remember seeing the opening, and for some reason, I remember this scene in particular. Like, this is the one that got me. That
was the box cover for the VHS.
It was, yeah, and and what I remember the most is if you remember the scene, Shawnee Smith will pull off this arm that he's got right here, and I remember the arm moving, and there's something about that arm moving that always stuck with me. And over the years, then I saw the full movie. honestly, I probably didn't see it until I got it, the whole way through until I got it on DVD in like, the late 2000s, I think is when I finally watched it, the whole thing back to back. But and we'll talk about this later, but the other thing I remember the most about the Blob, of course, is at the Iowa City Public Library when I made the connection by picking up the VHS box of the 58 Blob with Steve McQueen. And it's the great cover where he's holding the stick out and the Blob is coming up the stick with McQueen going like that. That I remember the most too. So
I can definitely relate to actually all these stories for the most part, except for Jazz in the 58 version, because I know in shocking fashion, I actually have not seen the 58 version in its entirety yet to this day. I've seen
shocking. You're a communist. Doesn't matter.
I don't know. I've like been in the room when it's been on. I just like haven't been like tuned in the whole time, if that makes
Chris,
sense.
I'm right there with you.
It's not like I have anything against it. I don't think I'm better.
Jazz,
than
let's get out of here. Let's just go. let's just leave these guys behind. I can't.
Well, I will get to my first time getting blobbed in just a sec, but I do want to say hi to everyone in the live chat. I see we have Angie Saunders, the mashup genius, in there. Sean Ellis, Whiskey 41, the great Alex Bonafonte, Michael Ricci, the location scout, Caitlin Altman, America's Next Top Model, Gold's Code, the great Sean Gold. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. Gold's Code kicking off the live chat with Ian. You let me down. I expected Steve McQueen blading down Devil's Backbone, but no, a remake. Come on. Steve Anderson looks like a man who has one VCR Redux left in him. One last episode. Sean Gold, always good to razz the live panel here. We love it. Michael Ricci, a fan of the Jello pudding. Let's see. Where do we see the blob, folks? Sean Gold says, I saw this movie on TV as a kid, and that scene with the sink scared me for life. Or scarred me for life. The OG version is better. Couldn't eat Jello for days after this. Michael Ricci, this was a VHS in my grandpa's basement. Big ass bowl of popcorn. Johnny Drama kills it. Hell yeah. There's no wrong way to blob. Sean Ellis, the OG Blob came out with when my parents were teenagers. Well, I think my parents were like even preteens at that point or something like that.
I think Kyle says near the OG Blob came out when my dad was 4 years old.
There we go.
Wow.
If that doesn't make you feel like you're from another time, there's Kyle, MK2 in the live chat and running this all in the background, making us all feel old. Thank you, sir. So interesting question though. The last thing in the live chat I see, Sean Ellis says, what's so scary about a creature that looks like an overgrown puddle of dishwasher soap? It doesn't make any sense. This is the exact mentality that I went into the movie with at like maybe 9-10 years old. Like Ian, I had seen the VHS cover a bunch. And also like Ian, the sink scene is the one that got me. That's when I realized that like, oh, this actually is kind of scary. Like it's really credit to the power of like directing and acting. The way the actors sell their death scenes, like that's 100%.
Choices that they made in the special effects too. Like you're just sitting there thinking, like, what if this thing actually caught up to me? What would it actually even really do? It's kind of stupid. And then when you see that, necessarily, you know what I mean? Like what it actually does, it's the worst thing anything could do to anyone. It's horrific. You know?
Yeah, you kind of imagine getting trapped in a phone booth and the shit coming at you or like whatever. And like also, I think this movie really, what I love about it is that it pulls no punches. Like we were talking about this, Steve, that it's willing to fucking kill kids. It's willing to kill good people, bad people, nice people.
There's some good ones. There's a really good one in this, Ian, and I thought of you. And then that kid dissolves right in front of the rest of them. I'm like, Ian is going to hear about this on Wednesday.
No, that is the one part of this movie I cannot forgive. I do not like that. I've never liked that in the movies. You should never, ever kill kids. It's awful.
Listen, if it's going to be an anthropomorphic, giant gelatinous monster, then I don't find it to be that. It's nothing in
also, it's a movie.
They're not portraying anything in real life
blob,
that's ever taken a child's life in real life. It's so out there and outlandish.
I think if you want to scare a 10-year-old kid, show them a fucking 10-year-old kid can get killed by the blob. Then that kind of helps them identify. It helps, that helps the young kids get. This movie kind of freaked me out a little bit when I was like 9 or 10, whenever it was that I saw it. It was like it was one of those like Sundays where like all your you have like a family party, like a Sunday holiday or something, and you're just upstairs watching USA or like whatever channel, and you get sucked into some horror movie, and then like before you know it, you're like, damn, I'm kind of freaked out a little bit. But that was awesome.
So many movies, and especially like around this time, a lot of directors and a lot of writing or whatever felt the need to constantly take any death scene and take the the preemptive few minutes beforehand and just really let you know that this character all of a sudden out of nowhere is a complete piece of shit in one way or another, and that way it's more palatable, and then you kind of can also side with Jason. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like this character we've gotten no development from in the last minute, we have to show as like a sexist, awful, pervert. And that way Jason can kill him and move on to whatever. The Blob kills completely indiscriminately. And I don't know, I kind of appreciate them like not.
Yeah.
Again, it's all about that not pulling the punches thing, like.
Steve, you just wrote the college paper that every kid writes, in film 101 class that
that
tries
right?
to tie some Americanism to a horror movie, and I hate you for it.
Oh, I could do it all day, Ian.
Ian gives you an F on that paper every time he comes across.
I find it pedantic, and everything that you said, I am now dumber.
You ever notice how all American horror movies seem to take place in the woods, like like when we got here and colonized, all these
Ian claims
where
Ian claims to love horror movies, but like everything below the tax bracket of Silence of the Lambs is like
no.
Well, I don't find it very.
I don't.
It's pedantic and it's very.
I don't need Nick Cage singing a song and with a weird face. I don't need long legs. I don't need that crap. Okay, I will say this. I actually do like the Blob 88. I actually do. This is a fun movie. I've always had fun with it. When I saw it for the like I said, it scared me as a kid, but watching it for the first time ever, it's good. I will say I liked it because it is and should be on one of the list as a good example of how to do a remake.
Oh yeah. The Thing, the Blob, and the Fly. Those are the three greats.
It's really, truthfully, like the Blob remake, they took the idea from the original, didn't tarnish the original in any way,
right?
And actually made, it allowed it to be its own thing. Because I don't know, I'm actually literally a couple towns over from where Phoenixville, Pennsylvania is, which is where they filmed the original Blob. And so, it's really kind of cool. Just a couple weeks ago, for the first time ever, I was at the Phoenixville at the Colonial Theater, where they filmed in the original 58 version, the Blob attacking the theater. I was actually in the theater where the Blob is doing, and every year
that's cool.
Oh wow, and it's great. Every year they do a thing called Blob Fest, and so I'm not, we're not getting paid by Blob Fest. It's just a cool thing. So every year they have a 3-day festival where they show the Blob, and they show probably one of the greatest sequels of all time, Son of Blob, directed by the film that JR shot.
There's a sequel to this movie.
Yes,
in the 50s. Wait.
Yeah,
sequel to the 88 one or the 50?
No, there's a sequel.
Okay.
There's a sequel to the 1958 version that was shot in the 70s by Larry Hagman of Dallas fame.
Yeah.
And in the 80s on the VHSs, they promoted it as the movie JR shot.
Wow, that's
really
fucking great.
It has no connection with the original movie. Larry Hagman got all of his famous friends, but this movie has Burgess Meredith in it. It's got all of these famous actors. And it's Sid Haig is a cop that gets killed by the Blob in a sewer. I mean,
is it any good?
No.
Okay, all right.
No. But you know what?
If I hate self-promoting, but if you're interested in knowing more about the Son of Blob, please go to Fandom Spotlite
Ian Klink,
and look at the B Movie Challenge for Son of Blob. I tell you everything that you need to know.
So, sorry, but Jazz, you just watched both of them?
Yeah.
Back
so
to back? Yeah. So what? So that's interesting. What's your overall take, considering you just ingested both of these?
So Stop it. I have a really redonkulous dog right now. I'm like trying to bite me.
Give me a dog. Give us a dog cameo.
Yeah,
Oh.
relax. Anyway, so yeah, I what I did was I watched the original and then the 80 version. Dude, come on. Of course. I actually really appreciated the sci-fi effects of the original. Because I actually was like, these are a lot better than the more modern effects that we see in today's shows and films, I feel like. Even though it can be hokey as all get out.
Right.
It's really interesting, like visual effects wise, not to cut you off, but like just a year later, they do a similar thing digitally in Ghostbusters 2 with the pink slime.
Exactly.
And it's like a great marker of, you know,
I've also heard that said about, because the movies are similar in their own right too, of The Thing and The Fly, but I've also heard people say that about both those movies, especially The Fly. Like, if you haven't seen the original, like the special effects are really something to be whatever. And I'm like, how? Again, I haven't seen the original Fly all the way through either. I've seen bits and pieces.
I don't know. I don't know if Jazz. I mean, I don't know if Jazz agrees with me, but like the blob going on the old man's hand in both the original version and the 88 version are both cool. I mean, I really think they're both amazing. And especially, and honestly, especially since the guy who did the original, I mean, you know, Jack Harris, you know, he did this as a, you know, he was a local guy in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania, who's like, well, Roger Corman can do bad movies. I can do a bad movie. And, you know, just got local talent and got this guy named Steve McQueen, who was a nobody actor in New York City, who came to Philadelphia to film in the movie. 2 years later, he gets Wanted Dead or Alive, the TV show, and becomes a star.
Well, that's how every the horror trope goes or whatever. These actors come in and do these ridiculous movies, then become huge and hate those movies.
And Steve McQueen had an option to get rights, like take a lower salary to get, you know, back end credits and stuff like that. And he's like, nobody's gonna see this movie. Give me my money up front. Well, it cost him millions of dollars.
Oh, sure.
Because he was in the movie, it played on TV all over the place.
Right.
And, you know,
cultural phenomenon. I feel like
apparently Steve McQueen on his deathbed had a poster of the Blob in his room when he was dying.
First it is his final words. Yeah.
Wow. Yep, kind of. Yeah. So
I feel like that's cute. I like that. That's like do you imagine like Jennifer Aniston someday being like 98 years old clinging to a Leprechaun poster, you know?
They took the money at the time.
Right. Matthew McConaughey.
They were more than happy to. Yeah, Texas Chainsaw, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I will say this. 88 is, like I said, it takes the original and it does something even better. Like, you know, spoiler alerts, you know, the whole government is the one who actually created the Blob. It's not this thing from a meteorite.
Yeah.
I mean, even though they kill a kid, which I can't stand, the special effects are incredible in this movie. And the fact that it is practical effects and it is claymation and it, you know, and you know, slow-mo animation. And
this movie would be right up there, the echelon of The Thing and The Fly. I think if maybe, I mean, those movies had way more, you know, well-known directors with more well-based cast of people. They had, you know, Kurt Russell.
Well, it's interesting.
This movie had Johnny Drama, you know, like that's
so
rough,
I feel like there's an alternate universe out there where Wes Craven directed The Blob and Chuck Russell directed Shocker, you know, and they're right around the same time. And it's like, it's so weird that these Nightmare on Elm Street alumnus wind up doing these two movies at the end of the decade to kind of finish off the 80s. And to me, The Blob, and I love Shocker too. I'm not trying to talk shit on Shocker, but it's obviously schlocky compared to The Blob, you know?
Oh, yeah. I mean, this movie had in all rights of when it came out and what it is. Like, it's very surprising almost that nobody got a hold of this and was like, and there's going to be, and we're not even going to worry about the special effects. It's The Blob. It's fun. There's going to be tits and there's going to be, you know, a lot of kids swearing and there's going to be, it's going to be goofy as fuck and who gives a shit, you know? Like,
give me a hit song on the soundtrack. Yeah, they avoided all the tropes of the day.
Yeah.
For the most part. They made which makes the movie. It doesn't feel that 80s. There are certainly some like Kevin Connolly. Kevin Dillon, excuse me. Is Johnny Drama, the motorcycle hump.
Kevin Dillon.
There's a lot about that.
There's
a lot about that that's like a little like, okay, I don't know about this. Like, to essentially recap one of my favorite scenes, where he's, working on first of all, he's got a motorcycle that's like a Harley or something, and he treats it he acts it like it's a dirt bike, and he like jumps off-road bridges.
He's only ever with it in the woods and in
Yeah.
the sewer later. He's never riding it on a road. He's only working on it in the middle of the night in the forest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They work way too hard to set up the driving over the blob part. But I mean, the payoff is sweet for sure.
I will say this. I got to meet the guy who plays the pharmacist, who was Babe Ruth in The Sandlot.
Art LaFleur. Art LaFleur.
Let me tell you, we here at VCR Redux honor those who need to be honored in cinema history, and Art LaFleur needs to be honored. I met this guy at a convention. Not only did I get him to sign, because he was in Field of Dreams, I got him to sign a picture of Field of Dreams, but I got him to write ribbed on the autograph, because when he says that in this movie, there is nothing better.
Yeah.
That's I love that's the setup that I really enjoy now that I watch it, because I used to forget every time, but now it's like so delicious you can't forget. I actually love the line in the pharmacy where he's like, kid doesn't need condoms, he needs a muzzle. That's so good. There's so true about that. But I feel like you have to shout out Frank Darabont in this. This is an early Frank Darabont outing. But also like I said, there are just certain parts of it that, even though we all love Frank Darabont, like the the scene where he's like changing, he's like working on his broken down Harley after jumping it on an off-road bike path. That's like, okay, maybe not the best example of Darabont's writing, but like it's still great. I don't care what anyone says. There's like the characters, that's what gets you.
Right, and not a single one of them is likable aside from the leading actress in it.
No, I think Herb was likable, the one cop who let Johnny Drama go, not the dickhead redhead cop from RoboCop.
Sure, okay, yeah,
the sheriff or whatever.
Died pretty early on.
The diner waitress was pretty nice.
Jeffrey DeMunn.
Yeah,
the kids in the movie are nice.
They died,
and
too.
at least the blob kills the asshole who's talking over the movie. That's the one thing that I feel like you really got to appreciate.
Wearing his little headphones with his feet up on the chair. Yeah, I'm glad he's not. He didn't make it.
Of all the horror movies, of all the '80s horror deaths, that guy may be the most deserving of his. Like, there's a few in this movie that really do deserve it. Actually,
Crispin Glover,
the guy in the car.
Crispin Glover in Friday the 13th Part 4.
That's
the dead fuck.
That makes sense.
Yeah, he
don't know.
No, that he when he's asking for the corkscrew, like no, like you got what you deserve.
Maybe, but I will say, I just have to shout out whoever made this meme. It's one of the greatest memes of all time. It's Marty McFly and George McFly looking at each other in the 50s diner, and George McFly goes, "What?" And Marty McFly goes, "You're the dead fuck." It's one of my favorite memes I've ever seen. It is absolutely gold. And shout out whoever fucking made that meme.
Chris Stiles would print that off, make it a 24 by 36 post.
That meme belongs in a fucking museum. They should fucking teach that meme as part of our cultural history. That wasn't even a meme. That was artwork. That belongs next to the Mona Lisa.
Throw him over.
I wept. It was so goddamn fucking good. All right. Best meme ever. But we are almost at pitch time. So I do want to preempt the chat. If you haven't already put in your favorite Blob scene or your favorite Blob kill, it is time to start thinking about what you would do in a Blob sequel. Now this is interesting. I would have never thought about, of all the movies to not have like, oh, the next generation or the next whatever, like they already did the Son of the Blob. I'm like, fuck me. How do you top that? Maybe you remake the Son of the Blob?
Son of the Blob?
Because it was the Son of the Fly.
Blob, you can't top it. I'm sorry.
What would the today version of that be? You get what, like, kind of, still relevant actor gets all his kind of older actor buddies, like, who'd you say it was? What actor did this?
Larry Hagman.
Larry
Hagman, yeah.
So who's like the equivalent of Larry Hagman now? Is like Tim Allen or something? You know, like some
Tim Allen
washed up
gets-
TV guy.
Dallas with
Like,
Patrick Duffy. He's still old and he's got all his hair.
oh, Patrick
Maybe.
Duffy.
I was gonna say
Yeah.
Patrick
Oh,
Duffy
Son of
would
Blob
be
with
the
Patrick
equivalent.
Duffy. You know what?
Sure.
That is not
You know
a
what?
bad fucking idea at all.
The sequel to the first one was Son of Blob. They remade this one. Naturally, you could do Son of Blob based off, continuing off the 80s one.
There's a version of the Blob that I don't know.
The Blob Father. Oh,
There you go. There you go.
A mob, dude, of like the mob versus the Blob. That's fucking perfect.
What about
Blob
Blob
versus the Blob? I don't know why, but I want to greenlight this just because of what you just said.
Dude, it sells itself. Fucking boom.
So the obvious answer has got to be, it makes the most sense, right? Is like you have a vampire movie, you make a sequel to it. What do you have to do? There's got to be vampires in it now. As it, like also
Blobs.
this has to be blobs. You know what I mean? Or the Blob has gotten.
Oh, the aliens. You want the James Cameron sequel?
I mean that.
Come with me
There's
if
so
you
much
want a
you can-
Blob.
Yeah. Like, or the thing, figures out how to like, segue, shed off parts of itself, and sends them out. It's like one big like weird organism.
This
that
has
can-
the greatest ending sequel setup ever, where Del Close is holding the Blob in that fake hand that's like in front of the screen, and it's moving and doing all that stuff. And
that whole coda feels very Lovecraftian to me.
Oh yeah, no, it's great. It's a great sequel setup. I mean, almost to the point where you don't even need a sequel because it's such a great setup for a sequel. Like him doing that, I just
you
got
get
the
it
whole
all in
movie
that
in-
one. Right.
Yeah, I just got the whole movie in my head just watching the ending of that. I don't need a sequel, but I did. There's a version out there that I think would be interesting. That's not. Is there a way to do it where it's comedy, but it's not a Wayne's brother comedy? It's not a Leslie Nielsen comedy version.
Sure, yeah, of course.
But
If you get
is there like
comedic-
evolution? Like if Ivan Reitman was still
Ugh.
alive and did a version of the Blob.
Right. So I think you need to mix elements, right? Like Fright Night, would be like kind of an example. Like you can still have these like horror, genuine, special effects that are like traumatizing, almost whatever. The Blob can still be this like crazy, the thing that it was before. And on top of that, you just get comedically gifted actors who are just charming and can carry, a good enough script.
Oh my gosh.
Like there's not much. Yeah.
Do you know how bad I would love to have the Blob take over TikTok? Like all of these dumb people who film themselves doing the dumbest things, and for
The
whatever plot
bloggers
of the-
get blobbed.
I swear to God, I don't care how it intervenes with the movie or whatever the main point of the movie is. I just want some people to like watch TikTok and they're like, "Oh, dude, Dave, check this out. Oh, I'm gonna dress," and they dress up in the stupidness that people do on TikTok, where it's like the more ridiculous I look, the more views I'll get. And it's like, I'm gonna dress up like an idiot and slap myself in the face with the Blob, and then literally the Blob eats them.
Oh, like they intentionally fuck with the Blob?
Yes, like,
well, I
but-
mean, that
but,
would be a
like-
good one. Yeah, like we're on
Yeah.
here now, like this thing that everyone's been talking about that they've got us cut off
Eat
from.
those Tide
Here's-
Pods.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes,
Same idea.
like, you
We're
play
gonna
with
go
the
fuck with it. Let's go
you
poke
play
it
with
a
the
stick.
Blob, and it's just like somehow or another, which gets the U.S. government interested because this is something that they had put away in '88, and so now our young hero of the movie gets assigned this case of, you need to go to, heck, they go to Ohio, right? And there's these idiots on skateboards who get blobbed. All right.
Oh, he's preempting the live chat.
So,
now. I love it.
like, he has to go to Ohio to figure out what the heck's going on,
And then all those kids get murdered right out of the
thank
gate.
goodness,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
how Airborne should have gone. But like, there's somehow or another, it's just like this thing begins to happen, and all I want is at the end of the movie to be one big giant gelatinous blob that like takes over America. Like all these little blobs kind of come together, to form like Super Blob.
All these like half city blobs.
Oh, you want some like Killer
are all
Tomatoes kind of shit.
Yeah, like
they're
that
all-
would be funny.
yeah.
Like if there was a version of that where you could have some real fun.
John Astin.
And it ends in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania.
Gross.
At a
but yeah,
movie
sure, why
theater.
not? So I get it.
If you can go back in time and have Robert Loggia play the John Astin role, like I think I would be 100% sold. But I also kind of like this was sort of coming to me like if you did a movie that was sort of like I love how this movie has the guts to kill kids. So like, what if you did with an even younger cast? What if it was like focused on a group of younger kids in a Blob like scenario?
Just murdering small
Man, that
children.
could work with the TikTok theory too. I think.
Yeah, like this could kind of like
you lost me on this.
Well,
you could kind of view the lens of the because this movie never gets out of this town, right? And obviously what we're talking about is a widespread, crazy, epidemic of
so it also goes to like the old folks home. You get the
you're showing
angle.
like so a good lens to look at.
They can't move faster than the Blob.
The social media side of how everyone else is being able to keep up and theorize about what this thing is and whatever in conspiracy, whatever, like how it actually would be, as opposed to actual news sources being able to tell you anything because the government, would never let any of that information go. It would all be, So that's, I don't know.
There is something too if you did that, and we're seeing like blob things happening across the world through the eyes of the internet and on their phones, but they're having to deal with this one blob in the town. And
oh sure, yeah.
I will say this though, I know it'd be so easy to do computer effects, but I would love if we just go old school. Like if this movie came out in 1990, what would be the effects we would use?
Oh, then your comedy version would definitely star Bill Murray, and it would have been What About Blob?
So yeah, right. So like you're definitely right. It's the same thing when they did that remake of The Thing, and you're like, well, this fucking you took everything great about this, and I'm not like a huge like advocate for like no CGI ever. I hate it, or anything like that.
But they did everything with CGI, and it just wasn't the same.
Right. Everything great about the effects of this movie and The Fly and the whatever is that this specifically works against the idea of CGI and whatever. And we saw that with The Thing. And so the idea of however, there might be a few scenes of maybe showing this thing taking over a city, as opposed to like when you see it huge in the town, it looks pretty janky. But for the most part, you're right. The kills and the close-ups and all that, however they did it here, worked so well. There's no reason to change that formula. Yeah,
I agree totally. I think you could even do better now because now you have the art of digital to remove things. You could remove wires, or you could remove like if there's something like you need to have like a wind machine. You could really isolate the parts of the frame. You have control over every pixel, and like to do it the old school way with the advent of a little like digital boost in post, and not in terms of CGI, but again just in terms of like removing things. I think that could, or even like compositing. There's just a few shots in the 88 version where it's like the elements are good, they're just not composited very well. Like you can see matte lines, or it's just like the levels are a little bit off, the black levels, and it's like the kind of shit that's so easy to fix on a computer, and like the shit that was so hard to guess about back in the day. You only had like one pass of comping things together, and you pretty much just had to live with it. Damn it, the matte was off by one frame. That's when you see the lines.
And you could do more. Like the blob could only be as big, or could only grow as much as they could bring in whatever the hell they used, to show it, like whatever that shit was, like and that they could pour through whatever vents or the backs of walls. So you could do a mix of, you could Jurassic Park that shit, do a mix of both.
Sure.
Yeah.
But there are some pitches in the chat, of course. So kicking it off, I see Michael Ricci with first couple pitches. His easy pitch, Blob in Space. Also the Blob 2, Steven Seagal Boogaloo. Whiskey 4-1 taking it a little bit further. His pitch, the preps are back, this time committing crimes against innocent Cincinnatians with the skills learned from an evil sensei who doesn't like standing for too long. Steven Seagal is Chairborne. Wow. I didn't
Nice.
see that coming, but I love it.
Tagline, everything. Sweet.
It's Steven Seagal has earned his rightful place next to Airborne as a weekly part of our VCR Redux here, and I couldn't be more thrilled about it.
I like how that one didn't even acknowledge that we were talking about the Blob.
The Blob.
It kind of did. It kind of did. There was, well, it's sort of. We'll get there. We'll add that part later. It's fine. We can fix it in post.
Don't defend.
Gold's code with the pitch, though. The Blob lands in Cincinnati and begins to devour the city. It can't be outrun, but it can be outbladed. Mitchell and the Preps team up and race to finish the Blob in Blobborn.
The most exciting movies.
There's the 90s version.
With giant creature effects is that it's right. It's New York, right? And then it's like the Golden Gate Bridge. You bring it to LA, and then it's Ohio. And those are the three, right? The big three.
Definitely. Nothing sexier than Cincinnati,
Right.
There's just nothing in this world. But I see another pitch in there. Rand's pitch. Crossover movie The Blob versus Body Snatchers versus Little Shop of Horrors in Gangs of New York. Wow, this is epic. With a big battle scene in Times Square and the government call to help is Monster Square. Oh, the Monster Squad kids all grown up. Wow, the Blob 5 body in Little Monster Street. I love this. This is fantastic. Rand, where have you been on my
I know we're talking about Blob, but I will say that just I like that pitch because the Monster Squad should have been a franchise that our childhood, at least we should have gotten 2 and 3.
Yes.
It probably failed at 3. It probably failed at 3. But there's an alternate universe where there's a Monster Squad Part 3.
We're doing fantasy football here. Like you're looking at failed at 3. Like dream big, dream for a great Part 3.
Nah, I'm just saying. I'm realistic. It died at 3.
Weirdly enough, kind of piggybacking off this, doesn't it kind of feel like the Blob was could have very well was so close to getting that universal monster, credible. I feel like him and the vague ghost that looks like a sheet or whatever. We're getting callbacks, a bunch of times to come back in. Just did not make that
this
cut.
happened. I almost feel like this happened because someone wanted to do Creature from the Black Lagoon and then that fell through. I could be wrong.
Oh, he's one of them. Yeah.
But
it came from somewhere.
I might be crossing the stream somewhere on that one, so I apologize if I'm off about that. But there are more pitches.
Chuck Russell wanted to do. He said he wanted to do it because he loved the movie as a kid, and because Nightmare, because him and Frank Darabont had did Nightmare on Elm Street 3, The Dream Warriors, was such a huge hit. They basically got a blank check, and so to be truthful, this is a blank check movie.
Awesome.
Because they had been on such a high, every studio was like, we'll give you whatever you want. And they're like, could we redo the Blob? And they're like, yeah, do it.
It's interesting that we're just starting to get really into this redo era. And I think it kind of culminates with the 1990 Night of the Living Dead remake, which I actually really, really, really love. And then you have an 8-year gap where they're not doing this shit, and then they do a little bit. They do Village of the Damned, I guess, in '96, but that doesn't really feel like it's part of the pack. Then you get to the Psycho remake, and where things get really strange.
Hats are off.
And then it's kind of Then it's like, all right, fuck. If you can remake this, you can remake Halloween a bajillion times, and you could Ugh, I'm getting agita just thinking about it.
It's crazy how these all started out so good with their own individual, Ian, like you were saying before, they have a lot of homages to the original. I recognize that just through pop culture osmosis, even not seeing these movies, but they do have, I'm sure, a definitive feel of their own, and they're and I'm sure they're very different tonally in a lot of ways, in all the best ways of remaking something, but not.
Well, what's funny is everybody always thinks when they watch this movie, they think Kevin Dillon is being Steve McQueen's part. Well, that's because people think of Steve McQueen. If you watch the original, Steve McQueen is just a nerd high school football player. He is actually this is actually who Steve McQueen is in the original. Right. So he's not. He's not this motorcycle. So the Kevin Dillon character is actually the essence of Steve McQueen, the guy, the actual man of Steve McQueen, that they kind of wanted to put a Steve McQueen type in the movie.
Right, because they do
Instead
set
of-
this guy up in the beginning. He's
Okay.
like the first shot of the movie, and you kind of get that charming him getting tackled and then asking her out, and you're thinking like, all right, well, these are our protagonists.
Which is what I
Yeah.
think people. I think was what Chuck Russell and them were doing is they were making people think this would be the Steve McQueen.
And he dies
that's-
first, yeah.
And so they were kind of pulling a Janet Leigh, where you
Yeah,
know,
Drew
we
Barrymore.
actually are tricking you. We killed the main.
Yeah.
Ha ha ha! You know, we killed the Steve McQueen guy.
All right,
Good on
yeah,
them.
that's
It's, you know,
it's
a
interesting.
good,
You know,
yeah.
one thing that we were talking about when we were watching this. You know, I feel like Kevin Dillon is, and I love Kevin Dillon, but I feel like he's quite ill-fitted for this type of role.
The mullet is too much. The mullet is
Well,
too
you know what it is?
It's insane. Yeah.
It's too long to be. It's too pretty to be a bad boy, and it's too long to be like, I don't even know,
80s
like a
rocker, like it's got a
Yeah.
little of that, but the front of it is so coiffed. He almost looks like a
Yeah.
daytime soap star from the time period.
It's yeah, it should be like messier or something, but like he's also like, you know, I think the perfect role for Kevin Dillon is really Johnny Drama, and another movie where he plays a very similar role is No Escape. If you ever saw that with Ray Liotta, where I feel like that's the quintessential Kevin Dillon role.
No, shut up, Chris. Just shut up. It's Heaven Help Us. That is the quintessential Kevin Dillon movie. I don't care what anybody says. That is Kevin Dillon.
Well, the good news is that the argument of what's the quintessential Kevin Dillon movie doesn't
Chris
matter
hates me for
whatsoever.
talking about Heaven Help Us.
Could not matter.
No, it's okay. I love Heaven Help Us. And that's why I couldn't really contradict what you said. I'm like, he's not entirely
who
wrong.
could have been in this movie at this time that would have
Right. So that's kind of where I was thinking. It's like, who is the young, I hate to say it, but like Feldman or Hank,
Tom Matthews from he
oh
played
yeah, he would have been great. Oh my
Tommy
god,
Jarvis
yes. Perfection.
in Return.
Yeah.
He was Tommy Jarvis
yeah.
in
Yeah,
Six.
Yeah.
And
Return
I
of
would have
Living
put
Dead,
him as
Boom.
that.
Sold.
Yeah.
Perfect. 100% done. Done and done. Or
Yeah,
Keanu, young Keanu.
we did it?
He was coming
Oh
up.
yeah.
This is
This could have
pre-Bill
been
and Ted.
this
So you
this
could
could
have
have
gotten
been
Keanu for this.
this could have been his Jennifer Aniston's Leprechaun. This could have been his Matthew McConaughey's Leatherface. You know, like he could look back and well, except this movie's good.
Actually, you know who could have been in this? Because he did a couple horror movies around this era, but Brad Pitt.
No,
You know, he did a
no.
movie called Cutting Class. Oh, no, hold on.
I know.
What do you mean?
Simmer
No,
down
like
now.
it wouldn't be
Simmer down.
better if Brad Pitt did it.
But
No,
he
I got better than Brad Pitt.
He
that's
would
why.
have had the
I gotta
Steve
agree with Chris on this
McQueen.
one.
He would have had the Steve McQueen quietness and the foreboding kind of thing.
1988.
I'm with you.
You needed the next thing before the next thing had even happened yet. And we
No.
all know the next thing was
I know
about
what
to
he's gonna
be
say.
Richard
Cameron.
Grieco.
Richard Grieco. I
Richard
knew
Grieco.
it.
Richard
Yeah,
because
I had a
Grieco.
feeling.
And I knew it
Perfection.
because I actually agree with you. For once in our
Yep.
lives, I actually agree with you, you bastard.
Yep.
This
No,
was
you're
destined
right.
for him coming right off of fucking Jump Street. Like, I'm that badass, like,
It
I'm
would've
jumping a
worked.
Harley. I wouldn't even care that he's using a Harley like a dirt bike. I'd be like, yep, Richard Grieco can fucking do that.
It
Like,
would've
yes,
You're
he
right.
can.
You're totally right. He could have done this instead of that fucking weird movie he does where he's like a
If
child
looks
spy.
could kill.
Yes,
Don't
thank
you
that's
dare
right, yeah.
besmirch if looks could kill. You
Oh,
could
I
have at least
did.
said he could have done this instead of mobsters. I mean, come on.
It's about like a wise
Anybody
kid
could have
from
done
the
anything
United
besides
States that,
mobsters.
that goes on a school trip and becomes an international spy. You know how that goes.
That's the greatest fucking movie ever made.
No,
If Looks
it's
Could Kill.
not. It is.
Go
it's
back and
just as
enjoy
bad as
our-
the Newton Boys. Like it's just like it doesn't work. Like we don't need hot
works.
young boys being mobsters. Get out of here.
We absolutely need all of this. I don't know what's wrong with you people. Like Christian Slater, Patrick Dempsey, and Richard Grieco in one movie. That's the Interview with the Vampire of its time, folks.
Oh, wait a minute. Okay, whoa. Although I still stand by the Greco with you on this, but
Yeah, no, you're right.
there is a cool version of this with Kiefer Sutherland.
Ooh, yeah, I can get
Sure.
behind that.
Yes, but Kiefer is one of the football boys. He's not the bike riding,
No, after the Lost Boys, come on, and after Stand By Me, he would have absolutely been.
Yeah, I was thinking the same
Yeah,
thing about
okay,
Kevin
okay.
Bacon for a second there too, and then I was like, but he kind of come off as maybe one of the
Bacon was
okay, but
Bacon
Bacon could have worked, but it would have ruined him doing Tremors.
That's what I mean, and that's the same thing I was thinking about the Lost Boys, like with Kiefer. Like
it just it works for so it's Richard Grieco. God, I hate that it's Richard.
It really is Richard fucking Grieco.
No, it absolutely 100% is, and he never got one of these, and he should have got one of these. And then
he totally should have gotten one of these because that's the only thing I think he's missing in his arsenal. Like he's got like some of those kind of like dramatic things. He's got those culty comedy things. He's got a little bit of that art house stuff. He's got the TV stuff. Doesn't have that like iconic horror thing, and it rounds out the Richard Grieco and completes the circle. And I think of the future we'd be living in now, where like Richard Grieco would still be a star, and MTV would still be playing music, and we'd all be like having flying cars and hoverboards, and it would be so great.
It would have changed everything. And his limited
Richard Grieco would have been an Oscar-winning actor.
Fuck yeah, god damn it! It would have been the Shawshank Grieco because he would have got in with Darabont.
Oh,
take my money.
Anyway, so like, yeah, you're right. In his limited scope of acting, this is particularly perfectly in his wheelhouse. Yeah. Well, so we did it.
I mean, I would say this. My question would be, like I said, the original it came from a meteor. The second one, the government stepped in. What would be the third one? Like if there was
except the mob, and then his Grieco worked for that too.
The mob.
So if we go back to the meteor thing, like the original, but some stupid kid's like, ooh, what's this? Lets it free. And there's no happy ending at the end. It just, mauls everybody. Because there are some films that just aren't happy endings. And then also, like, I know in the original, they used like the freeze ray type thing, basically to freeze it out to go away. But what if it like learned and it didn't actually just like
evolved,
helped it grow?
Right. Yeah. If this thing evolved so quickly to like beat out anything, we'd figure out how to throw at it.
So I like the Gonzo crossover thing. Like Steve was talking about like that James Cameron Aliens version, and it's just like, what if you mixed it with like a Terminator? But then I thought, like, what if you mixed it with Tremors? Like Tremors versus the Blob.
Oh my god!
Like,
you just went Puppet Master versus demonic toys.
You're like not even.
It's
like,
the ultimate drive-in movie. It really is. You can't give me a more definitive drive-in movie than that. Starring Richard Grieco.
It's odd because you have the two separate movies, one from a different time period and whatever. This one was just the 80s one, and that's all anyone ever knew. I think that's right. But like weirdly enough, I think it gives it a little bit more of like I don't know if you can mix. You can mix Tremors with a Blob, but like I don't think one's a little bit more like movie, and the other one's just more like like a fucking movie. Like, they're both great, but you know what I mean. I don't know if that's the right mix.
I think Guns would really do anything about it either, honestly. Because I remember watching, I'm like, I can see these people take out their guns, try to shoot. I'm like, that's not going to do anything.
That's part of what the fun is. I think you have like the Michael Gross character from Tremors who would fit right hilariously in like a Blob situation where he just wants to throw more firepower at it. And like it's just making it grow. Like everything you do that gets it hot just heats it up. And then you have the Tremors, the ass blasters. They actually shoot fire, so they're trying to fight the Blob. But
it does sound like you are.
That's what they're called. They're called ass blasters.
I know. We know. It sounds like you're getting dangerously close to Attack of the Killer Tomatoes reference that you made earlier, though.
That's what I don't want. I
don't want that either. No.
I don't want a flat out Leslie Nielsen version of the Blob where he's president. I know he's passed, but like you know what I mean. Like I don't want that comedy version of the Blob, but it's like, God, if like Seth Rogen wrote a screenplay for the Blob and just did like that kind of. I don't even know what you would call. I don't even know what you call that group, but it's like, the Jonah Hill, Danny McBride. Okay, well, I just said.
Well,
Danny McBride.
Back.
No. I know you guys don't like Danny McBride, but man,
get the McFuck out of here.
Was the Kevin Dillon character in a Blob version to be hilarious?
Sure.
Okay. Actually, all right. Acting in and not writing.
All right. Acting. No, imagine him doing those lines of like, get on the motorcycle, God,
Oh, sure.
with the
You
mullet.
could just let that man cook when it comes to that shit. Yeah, like
Yeah.
let him improv with that stuff. It'd be great. I'm in
That's-
favor of that.
Would be hilarious.
also-
him sitting in the middle of the street. It's like, what do we got to beat the blob? We got fire extinguishers. Shit. It's like that. Danny McBride delivering lines like that.
That's
and
what
him
I mean.
having-
People that have a
That
good
would be
comedic
funny.
presence about them is really all you need to make this movie charming and funny enough to carry with the, very similar presence and tone.
I also think Dermot Mulroney could fit in that Greco role at the
What?
time.
Yeah.
He
What
was
is the
just
matter
ready
with
for his
you?
next thing.
There are many people in this world who are trying to make us
Live their
forget
lives.
that Dermot Mulroney was never a thing. Just let it
Sir,
die.
Oh,
Like,
he's coming back too.
Sir,
he's not coming back.
Dermot Mulroney is coming back. All right, we all must love dogs.
This
and
is why
we
I don't like
all
it.
Have some young guns.
This is
in
why
us.
I hate this world. I was there for Trigger Effect. Were you? No, you weren't. I was there.
Stop
You
making
never
up
supported
movies.
him. What?
Stop making up movies.
This one
not
I'm on the
making
fence
that
about.
up.
It-
Chris, you
that's-
know I'm not making that up.
I'm not sure actually. I can't say for certainty one way or another. But I do say that I do have to get back to the live chat. I see Whiskey 4 with another pitch. The Blob is back, and the only one who can stop it is a hero of similar viscosity. The monster has taken our donut shop. This I am trained for, said by Steven Seagal in the Blob 2 Squishy Territory.
Squishy territory.
It's
He
kind
could
there's
fight the
also-
blob with from his chest up with the karate.
Oh,
You know what I
slap
mean?
fighting. Yeah,
slap
that's true.
fighting. That's what it is. Right? Yeah.
Michael Ricci suggesting a throwback Western Blob could work.
Or
Also
like
acknowledging-
time period blob. Yeah, right.
Oh, Whiskey 4-1.
We all know
requests
if there's
you-
a 4, you go to space. You don't go to the Old West.
Whiskey 4-1 requests docking on the soundtrack and also using CGI to
Gross.
close Kevin Dillon's mouth breathing in this movie. So
That would have helped. Yeah. That would.
I absolutely love that. There's also Whiskey 4-1 saying, I would have thought Heaven Help Us was a fake movie within a movie like Burn After Reading. So some love for the Seth Rogen suggestion. I could also have seen the Kevin Williamson, the 90s self-aware Blob, the Katie Holmes starring Blob,
Oh my God, the floating
know-
heads version of the Blob.
Yes.
Get
Yeah,
outta
it's like
here.
starring
Get outta
Katie Holmes and the guy from Roswell, or like Katie Holmes and the guy from Seventh Heaven, or I could have seen it happening.
Chad Michael Murphy. You want
Murray.
that guy?
Tom Welling,
Chad
Tom Welling,
Michael
and
Murray.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
God,
Chad Michael
that
Murray.
is-
Yeah.
There is a version of that in 1999. We were in high
Yeah.
school and we probably went to go to the theater to see that version
Yeah,
of
The
Blob.
Rage, Blob 2,
By Dimension Films.
Oh, totally a fucking Weinstein joint, totally a fucking scumbag piece of shit movie.
Devin Sawa has a mullet grown out, and he's
Wow.
owning
That's
this
the
role
movie
somewhere.
we're missing.
Yeah.
That
Okay,
is the
okay.
movie. Elijah
No.
Wood.
Yeah.
I think I got it. If you want schlock, you want drive-in, you want gross out, I think you can get just about all of that with one man, one director who's living today, who I know can deliver a Blob that we will remember for generations. The man's name is John Waters. That's
No,
the guy.
thank you for not saying what's his face. The guy that does all the horror type films now.
Oh, Blumhouse guy.
Jordan
Did
Peele.
Bloom?
Jordan Peele.
Jordan Peele.
The director of Sweeney Todd, Nightmare Before Christmas.
I'm not
Tim
sure.
Burton, Tim
why.
Burton.
Tim Burton.
Thank
Oh
you,
my God,
Tim
I'm
Burton.
losing
Tim
my mind.
Burton Blob.
I mean,
No, I
M. Night
hate my
Shyamalan,
least
I know how
favorite.
bad that would be, too.
My least favorite Tim Burton joint ever is Mars Attacks. So this is like the last thing I would want.
You're
him to do
nuts.
is another
I
50s
love
sci-fi
that you
schlock.
said a Tim Burton joint, as if
Yeah.
that is what is on every Tim Burton movie. I hate you, Chris.
I hate you too right now.
Well, then I think I might not have delivered a sequel to The Blob, but I have done my job at being the most hated man in the room. So I don't know if we got there with The Blob. I think we came pretty damn close. I think there's a few in there. Like, come on, just anything with Richard Grieco from 90 to 92 would have been great. The Blob,
No, I'm
2,
holding
The
out for the
Quickening,
Chad Michael Murphy
Christopher Lambert
version.
working for the government. It's fucking
Murray, yeah.
perfection.
Yeah.
You know, The Quickening, yeah. Or what about Blob, the Blob Father, any of that. Like, I'm down for all these. Oh, and Kyle 2.0 saying it came out in 1997. The Blob that ate everyone. Also commenting, isn't there a Goosebumps version of the Blob? Yes, there
The
is.
Goosebumps has a version of Goosebumps. Just
Everything.
versions everything. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's just
yeah,
like a
that's
modern
like
take
dummy,
on.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mummies.
My
dummies,
my
and
neighbor's a
werewolves,
werewolf or whatever the fuck. Yeah.
Oh, I love that shit. Yeah, my postman's a werewolf. Like,
Yeah.
that was just a wonderful time to be alive. It worked. I can't deny that. But before we wrap it up, is there anything you guys have got going on you want to let the people at home know about, or just where to follow you online even?
Well, you can.
Me neither, Jazz. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram on Ian Klink and follow all the funness, including coming soon a B movie challenge for the Burt I. Gordon classic Blythe Spirit ripoff called Tormented, about a guy who kills a woman in a lighthouse and her floating head haunts him.
Now I think you're making up stuff again. Like
I'm
Steve
not
does.
making this up, sir. You can't make up B movies. You can't make them up. They are just beautiful how they are.
Is it haunting the lighthouse? Or
no, it's haunting his piano playing.
Oh wow, Tales as old as time.
Weirder than the
really.
lighthouse. Yeah, right.
Well, I guess then it's time for me to see that you.
That's how you. That's in the music industry how you get ahead. Thank you.
Well, then I guess it's time for me to say that you Fandom fans might want to tune in next Wednesday at 9 p.m. when we bust Bielby Ghost with Michael J. Fox for our Frighteners episode. As always, that's right. It's about fucking time. As always, if you enjoyed this video, the best way to help is to smash that like button and leave a comment telling us what movie or TV franchise that you want us to cover on a future episode of VCR Redux. And since you're already doing that, you might as well go ahead and like, subscribe, and follow Crash Romeo, Fandom Spotlight, and Pop Culture Punk. Till then, back up those Betamax, rewind those Laserdiscs. We'll see you at the movies.
The blob, da da, blah 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 do do do.
Thank you for that. Yes, the best.